Hi, my name's Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. On today's episode of the Versus Chronicles, a series in which we pit two games against each other in an only somewhat serious overview of both. These videos will act as a record, if you like, of what I've been playing, and we'll do our level best to highlight some form of degree of separation between these two, on a sliding scale between almost identical to 100% different species. As an added treat, you're 83.6% likely to get a clear and accurate representation of what these games are and how they want history to judge them. Today's contestants, despite not agreeing on much at all, hail from the very same family and are in fact brothers spawned from the same seed. But like many siblings from yesteryear, plotting and murder is not beneath either of them as they try and claw each other's eyes out to gain the right to be crowned the natural heir to the throne. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it's quite literally a fight time with dice and cards. And so introducing to you first, in the blue corner, weighing in at 9.2 ounces, we have the second born runt of the litter, a prince that almost from birth took a shine to six-sided objects with shapes on them, whose first words in fact weren't mama or dada, but roll roll and right. God damn, if there was ever a sign that the child's future was already laid out for them, then this was it. Of course, we're talking about the little dice lover that could, Castles of Burgundy. No, I don't have a chip on my shoulder being the second born, the dice game. And now introducing to you, in the red corner, weighing in at a comparatively heftier but still lean and mean 11.4 ounces, we have the self-entitled firstborn child of Papa Burgundy, a prince that despite the arrogance born out of being the natural heir to the kingdom, tried desperately to understand what it meant to be for the people. As such, he helped increase the availability and the use of what was called at the time thick paper, which had a huge variety of practical applications. So much so that he used this thick paper for everything, as items of clothing, as food when venturing out on vision quests, and even to wipe himself. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mr. Cardboard himself, Castles of Burgundy, the card game. So kicking things off, we have the dice game, the slightly younger sibling of the two, having been released in 2017 as part of the ever-burgeoning roll and write genre. But before we proceed, it's disclaimer time. And to be fair, I should have prefaced this whole review by saying that I've never played Big Daddy Castles of Burgundy to this day. But I have spent a fair amount of table time with these two, especially the dice game. To me, this concept lends itself very nicely indeed to dice and pens. All of the actions you can take at the roll of the dice seem to fit together nicely, like elves in Santa's sweatshop. You start by picking one of the four castles on the gamepad and marking off that space with your choice of writing device. Alternatively, you can use the pencils provided, but this is just personal choice. This in turn gives you an immediate super duper ability for you to use when you deem appropriate. Your job then is to spread your influence over the pad representing Ron Burgundy throughout the course of the game. But, and this is a big but, you can't just mark off territories willy-nilly. No, there has to be order, and it's the colour and numbers on the dice that dictate that order, because once you start marking off spaces, you can only mark future territories that are adjacent to ones that you've already conquered. There are also requirements on what numbered dice can be played on what coloured regions. So as you'd expect, each turn the master roller, aka the person rolling the dice, will give you two coloured dice and two numbered dice. You then choose one combination of the both to mark an appropriate space on the pad. Sound simples? Well, yep, it definitely has that going for it, but the trick is getting whole regions conquered as early as possible. The game is broken down into three phases, and the quicker you conquer whole regions that share the same type, the more points you'll accumulate. You'll also need to be keeping a keen eye on the special abilities that will be bequeathed to you whenever you complete a region. These will give you a variety of opportunities, from allowing you to manipulate the colour or the number on the dice to giving you bonus actions. And the person who makes the most efficient use and movement across the pad will then be anointed the winner. All in all, this is now a firm favourite in the Dice vs Cards household. The good lady particularly likes roll and writes, and this is one of our favourites to play together. He may be the second born, but he's an absolute winner in our eyes. If you're looking for your next roll and write, even if you don't even have a sniff of interest in the game that spawned these two lovable cherubian monsters, you'll do worse than checking this out. Which brings us nicely to the dice game's opponent this day, who in fairness shares no resemblance, not in looks, well maybe a little in looks, but absolutely not in personality, to he who his parents sprogged out just a year later. One out, one in, as they say. The card game, or TCG as his mates like to call him, was spawned back in 2016. Remember folks, one Earth year is the same as 10 ball game years, so you do the math. It brings with it another way to replicate dice, as each and every piece of card in this game has its own predetermined die facing. So far so... wait, what? But you know what? It works. It's certainly got more complexity to it, it's definitely more of a thinker, but yeah, both these games are not really comparable in terms of the time it takes both of them to get to the table. So how does the card game claw back some of my affection? Well, first and foremost by having slightly more spice and variety to the choices you can make each turn. So instead of dice rolling, we have card drawing. You'll always have two cards in your hand, each represented a numbered dice, and there are quite a few things you can do with those numbers. You can grab a card from those adjacent to the fake dice numbers laid out in rows, which are then transferred to your trove as projects. You can then convert these projects into estates, and it's only when you convert 3 of the same projects into your estate does shizzle really start to go off. Well okay, that's how you get points, but look, we only get so much excitement around Burgundy, so humour me. Anyway, back on point, every time you turn one of these projects into an estate, you also get one of those super duper abilities I talked about when we talked about the dice game. This is something the two siblings can absolutely agree on. You must have duper super tunkfastic powers at your disposal in order for you to be associated with the Castles of Burgundy name. Whilst the abilities have a slightly different mechanical output here, the gist and the driver is the same, gets lots and lots of frogging points. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do with your fake dice. You can sell goods in bulk to point up. You can acquire worker bees that will allow you to increase or decrease your fake dice rolls by 1. You can attain silver nuggets that will allow you to take multiple actions on your turn, and you can even sell off unwanted workers and silver for more points. But who could forget those lovely farm animals? A kingdom simply cannot run without animals. Besides, what other game allows you to hold in your hand a pig, a cock, a cow and a sheep and be quids in? This one doesn't get to the table quite as much as the dice game, as you have to work at it just a little bit more, but it's still a highly rewarding game to get to the table. So with all that being said, we talked about 2 games that were procured in the very early days of the channel, when the first rumblings of Synapse activity were taking place for this series of videos, and so I'm pleased I'm finally able to document this historical battle between 2 high and mighty but downright scrappy contestants that quite literally represent dice versus cards. As it turns out, this was a tense fight that lasted the full 12 rounds. The dice game kept things simple, stuck to a game plan, and was able to keep the same high octane pace from the get-go to the last bell. The card game however got off to a somewhat sluggish start, and it wasn't until the second half of the bout that it really started to sit down on its punches and showed the judges what some deeper shades of Burgundy can do given the time and space. Alas, but despite both fighters ending the fight bruised and battered, there was to be only one winner, and on this day and at this time, by only the slimmest of margins and by majority decision due to one judge scoring the fight a draw, your winner and now the new natural heir to the Burgundy fortune, Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. I really do hope that you've been somewhat, moderately, or maybe not even much at all, educated and entertained by this video, and if you have, please do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with what we do.